Right. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. It is the new moon in Gemini. Welcome to Nighttime Astrology Live, where we can learn what's going on in our cosmos and take this into the astral plane, into the dream world to awaken tomorrow fresh with new consciousness, ready to go, clear mind, and excitement for the day. So we say hello to the moon and stars and planets. And while the sun is going underneath the horizon, and then we wake up with a brand new way to start our day. So welcome, and welcome to all the new members. Thank you so much for joining us here in the Lunar Ladies Lifestyle community. I'm Shannon. I'm the host and owner of Lunar Ladies, and I'll be doing these evening lives twice a week for now, but it may go in tomorrow. Let's see. So I'm just going to jump right in. What we're going to do tonight is talk about the new moon. And for those of you who are new to living with the moon as a lifestyle, and I call it a lunar lifestyle, meaning that we pay attention to the moods, the cycles, the phases, the signs of the moon, because it helps us connect to our core root self, our emotional body. And if we can have a very rooted and grounded inner core self, then we can navigate this material everyday world mentally from a much more empowered place. So that's really why I recommend following the moon, because if you know how you feel, especially when we ask, is this my to feel, or is this the collective, or is this somebody else? Like, what's going on? Because here in the West, in the Western civilizations, it's a lot more masculine, logic, and materially based, rather than in more Eastern civilizations or in the East, it's more spiritual, intuitive, or feminine, or inner world based. So we want to have the balance of both, the best of both worlds. So we're going to take a look at the new moon, and because it starts a new cycle and it's the moon. So again, it's talking about your core root self. And we look to the sign that the moon is starting a new cycle in your life. And that is Gemini. So this is when you get your natal chart out, you find the sign of Gemini. And then that's where this new moon and new cycle is taking place in your own personal astrology, your personal energetic blueprint. So this is really important. So if you live with the moon and all her 13 cycles for 1 year, then the moon has successfully navigated through your whole entire personal astrology chart, and you've learned a ton about yourself. You're more grounded, you're more aware, you have a more empowered sense of self, and that's who you are and what you use as a source of inner wisdom to navigate the world. All right, so I'm going to appear again live on Wednesday to help you get ready for Mercury going direct and Saturn going retrograde. That happens on Friday and Saturday. So that's our cosmic focus this week. Is tonight we're focusing on the new moon in Gemini and what it means, and giving you the backstory and helping you out with applying this knowledge to your own chart and your own personal life. And then on Wednesday night, we're going to talk about Mercury going direct. What's that mean? As well as it happens right before Saturn goes retrograde. So that's a big deal too. All right, so I'll get you ready for that. And then of course, always find where that's happening in your chart, because when you find where it's happening in your chart, then you have an idea of what part of your life is being activated. And I swear, if you know that much, you are like 90% ahead of everybody else. And it really helps you understand what's going on within you and around you. And then you can stop for a moment and make really solid, wise, and good and positive changes for your life. And you can accelerate your personal growth when you do this as well. So it's win-win. All right, so let's talk about tonight. So those of you who are new to lunar living, today is a new moon. And the new moon is a time of new beginnings. It's a very quiet time. The new moon is also called the dark moon because the sun and moon come together in a conjunction. We don't see the moon because it's with the sun. And depending on what time it is, it could be at nighttime, it could be in the morning, it could be during the day. But it's when they come together at the same degree in the sky. And it's a conjunction, and we call that a merging together, creating a new cycle. So the moon it moves faster than the sun because it's closer to the earth. And it goes into its 4 phases. First quarter, we get into action and we start moving through blocks and barriers. Full moon, things come up, we release and we replace. And then third quarter moon, we return inward, we get ready for the next lunar cycle, we let go and finish all the things and reflect on what had happened since the new moon. So right now is the time when you're quiet and you're inward and you're listening. So those are the 3 big things: quiet, inward, listening, in more of a place of stillness. So I know it's a holiday weekend here in the United States happening on a new moon, which, it's very difficult on a new moon to be out and about partying and doing all that because there's no energy in the field to support you to do that. Do that on a full moon. That's when the energy is like there supporting you to be out and about. But the new moons really go home, call it a night, enjoy the day, but make sure that you take care of yourself and you rest, because it's a 0 point field for the energy, and it's really quiet time. It's a time about rest and going inward. Okay, so I want to show you an image because to me, I'm very visual, and words speak thousands of words. So I wanted to share with you an image I created that comes from looking at the chart, looking at Sabian symbols, and kind of getting an understanding and putting it into an image of what this cycle is about. So before I show you that, Gemini, this is where the new moon's taking place. Gemini is about the lower mind. It's symbolized by the twins. It's about this or that. It's a very dualistic thinking, a dualistic way of looking at the world. In its lowest form, it's like good and bad, black and white. There's only 2 choices in this like cosmic myriad of possibilities. So it's very limiting in its lowest form. In the shadow, it can show up as lying, manipulation, gaslighting, things like that. Telling fibs and lies and hiding things and not being honest, right? Or gossiping. But in its highest form, Mercury is very powerful. If you can be aware and of the mind and how it works, right? We don't try to stop the mind or quiet the lower mind. We give the lower mind something to do, right? And in the some Eastern philosophies say, the lower mind is like the monkey, and if you try to chase the monkey around, the monkey's going to win. Monkey's going to get away and really send you on a wild goose chase. But you give the monkey something to do. You give him your keys. Monkey plays with the keys, figures them out. What are they for? How do they work? How can he create with them? So the same thing goes with the lower mind. You give your lower mind something to do. You give it something to focus on. But remember, that lower mind is very smart. It has its own intelligence. And so the key to giving the lower mind something successfully to focus on and learn about is paying attention to your curiosity, right? Curiosity. So this is a great lunar cycle to follow your curiosities. What are you curious about? Is there something you want to learn? Is there something you want to research or start a conversation about? So that's what Gemini does in its higher form. It's about connecting and communicating, saying hello, finding like-minded people, having a short conversation. Social media is a total Gemini thing, because especially things like Twitter, which it's like, only 144 characters, these short little messages, little blips. That's very Gemini. And Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury's retrograde. We'll go direct on Friday. So we want to say hello to this Gemini energy in our chart, in ourself, and we want to also say hello to our natal Mercury. all those things get activated during a Gemini lunar cycle and new moon. So when I was looking at the chart, Gemini and ruled by Mercury, Mercury's in retrograde, also going direct at this new moon's week. I wanted to give you a more mercurial empowerment. And Mercury also rules the sign of Virgo. And Mercury is said to be exalted, the exalted planet of Virgo, because of its empowered ability to focus and learn quickly. Virgo, when Mercury goes into Virgo, it analyzes, critically thinks, dissects. So that Virgo Mercury mind is highly intelligent. It's like super genius. And so we want to go move that Mercury energy more into the Virgo side. So I'm going to give some Virgo wisdom as to apply this to the new moon in Gemini. But really, as I was looking at the imagery and the chart, which I'll also show, this is a really big lunar cycle around mental wellness. So let's take a look at an image. I'm going to share my screen. I want to show you the image. And it's the image that I did for this live. And so in the image, we have this golden woman. And she's focused, right? She's focused on the scales. And there's light from the scales. And she's focusing on her hands. Now, in the body, Gemini rules the hands and the arms and shoulders, right? So when you can't focus on something, do something with your hands. Wash the dishes, knit, doodle, read with your fingers, play music, make something, right? Use those hands to garden and weed. It really helps the mind find a center and grounds the mind through the hands. So do something beautiful with your hands. Like you can even do a body massage yourself, put the lotion on, really tune into the power of the tactile energy and sensations, that all the things that the hands can pick up. And then if you're like making food, make it with love. Do things loving with your hands. That's going to really purify the mind. Now we have this golden woman and she's looking at her hands. There's light in her hands. And then there's also these scales. So we're looking at how to balance the mind, right? By focus, by, she's curious about the light. And notice the storm in her head, right? This is also about the ability to be not in the body, be distracted, be pushed and pulled in multiple directions for the main agenda to distract you. And when the person or the mind is distracted, it's not paying attention to the subliminal cues that are going into the brain that are trying to change behavior. And depending on who's in charge of that agenda, sometimes those behaviors are designed for negativity. Okay, so this is what Gemini, Mercury going direct, the new moon are all trying to help us with, is they're trying to help us really become aware of ourself. Self-awareness, aware of your thoughts, aware of your words, aware of your everyday habits and behaviors. Where are you distracted? Where do you get pulled away and get into kind of this, a more emotional reactive state rather than a clear mind thinking using intuition and logic? That's more the Mercury in Virgo vibration. So we want to be aware of any storms in the mind, things clouding our ability to focus on joy and creativity and curiosity, which allows our mind to find balance. Okay. So I was really feeling the energy of, and in some of the Sabian symbol language, existential wellness came up. And I thought that was really powerful to talk about how mental wellness is a thing that is in our civilization. And, here in the United States, we had an episode of a psychotic break where a young man, which Mercury represents the youth and Gemini is about the young people, a young man goes to an elementary school, more young people, right? And shoots and kills 19 children, 22, two adults and one adult teacher's husband as an aftermath to the tragedy. So that's a really poignant and powerful collective response to the energy, because not only is Mercury and Gemini activated now, it's also being activated by a very powerful Aries planetary force field. So let's go over to the chart. And so here we are with the natal chart. It's the event chart of the Gemini new moon. It was 4:30 this morning here in California. And so I want to direct your attention to the Aries energy. And let me put this into whole signs, because it's easier to kind of get a sense of the signs as they play out in the chart, especially if you're new to astrology and learning and, being curious, learning about astrology. All right, let me just push this to the side so I can see. All right, perfect. Okay, so here's the Aries energy at play. Now this is Gemini down here. It looks like the two, it's between Taurus and Cancer. So Gemini is like the two pillars with the top and the bottom. And here we find the sun and moon at 9 degrees. So we're completing something. 9 is a completion number. And it also the last degree of the first decan of Gemini, meaning it's a powerful, potent Gemini power and frequency that's we're under. So very pure Gemini energy. So it could go either way. If you're not aware of the pure power of the Gemini, it can go easily into the shadow. If you're aware of the pure power of Gemini, it can go easily into the magic, right? So there we have that dual energy at play. And we can just simply become aware when it goes into the shadow and when it goes into the magic. We don't have to choose one or the other. We just really want to be curious what's there and what can we learn and discern. But Aries is up here. And Aries has synergy with Gemini. It's fire and air. And I'm going to talk about that more on the Mercury Direct Live, because fire and air are about the wands and the swords in the tarot. And I like using the tarot as a way to explain things. So the swords in the tarot, and now these are all the sword 1 through ace through 10, are about the fire element, the air element, excuse me, and that's Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra. And then the wands are about creativity and passion, and that's the fire element, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So they come up in the Uranus power here. All right. So this Aries energy right now has Jupiter conjunct Mars. We talked about that last week. And then Chiron at 15 degrees. And then of course, Eris, a very outer goddess planet. It will be in Aries for a long time, for a couple more generations. So this is what we have to watch out for, is the nature of the nature of Jupiter is to expand. Mars is in his home sign, so he's empowered already. Chiron is healing a wound. So we have this expansive Aries, which can in the shadow be aggression and violence, especially through guns and war. So we have a war going on, probably more than one, but the one our attention is on is the Russia-Ukraine. That's symbolizing the war energy on the planet. Here in America, we had more than one mass shooting in Buffalo and in Texas. I'm focusing on the Texas one because of the nature that it involves children, although what happened in Buffalo is just as tragic. But because we're talking about Gemini and Aries, it's about our youth and the young power of especially young men with Mars and young men with guns that are wounded, and Jupiter's there expanding it. Okay, so the Jupiter energy is said to be in the detriment when it collides or connects with Gemini. Why? How do I know that? Jupiter rules the sign of Sagittarius, natural ruler. So Jupiter says, hey, Mars, You're my fire guy. You're my fire friend. I rule the fiery Sag. You rule the fiery Aries. But because Sagittarius is opposite Gemini, when Jupiter goes it engages with Gemini, it goes into its detriment, meaning it's not as powerful. It has something to learn here, where Jupiter likes to expand everything it touches, kind of like the Midas touch. But if we look at the Midas touch story, right, everything he touched turned to gold, and then he couldn't touch anybody because they would turn to gold, and they wouldn't be real anymore. They wouldn't be alive anymore. So the moral of that story was he suffered from that witch. So that's what to me, King Midas energy is Jupiter and Gemini. Everything you touch turns to gold. But that's not always what you want or what will feed your soul, you know? So that's what we got to watch out for is this Jupiter energy, because it is in an expanded state. We're already seeing it show up in its shadow in the collective through violence and war. So it's starting to get pulled in by the sun and the moon in this new moon cycle. So we have to be very aware of Jupiter and what it's doing, especially if Mars is out of balance. We're seeing Mars is out of balance because of war and violence in our collective right now. So for you personally, you want to look. Where is Aries in your chart? What house does it rule? Is there any type of conflict going on or any sense of wounding about who you feel that you are or believe that you are? So look for those warning signals. One of the big things you'll know if Jupiter is misbehaving in your life is Jupiter right now is at the Sabian symbols of two lovers strolling. And so when it connects with the Gemini energy, it's going to go into the shadow. And what's the shadow of two lovers strolling is someone who's not with anybody, longing to be in relationship, feeling lonely. So Jupiter will start to bring up loneliness feelings. And if we look at the storyline of the young man who killed the children in the school, was he lonely? Right? Do you think he's super isolated or lost in his own thoughts, or just, his mental state was not well, right? We don't know exactly what was happening, but usually when you see these isolated people, the isolation part is deteriorating the mental well-being. So we want to look at, where do we feel lonely in life? How can we change that, set something in as a new cycle to create something new, right? So say if you want a relationship, who do you need to be? Is there anything inside that needs to heal to invite that beauty of a new relationship in? Like, what kind of partner do you want? What kind of experiences do you want to have? Who do you want to be in relationship? This is what Chiron's is asking. Because sometimes we go, yeah, make your list of your ideal partner, and that partner will show up. And it's like, not really. It's a two-way street. You got to be at a personal vibration that attracts what you want. Sometimes if we're wounded in our personal vibration, we'll attract what we don't want to help us see that, wow, that's what I'm settling for, and that's not working for me. I need to do some self-love, self-work. So that's how Chiron can help you. But with Jupiter, we want to look at that loneliness energy in our life, whether it's friends, family, partnering, love. Where is it not showing up in your life? Now, with the Gemini potent energy, this will take us back to our early childhood, possibly around 3 to 5, toddler age. And so if your parents are still living, you could ask them, or maybe even older brothers and sisters, because Gemini rules siblings. Go back to your earliest memory. What is it? What was going on? Go back if you know, what was your first word, or what was the first book that you read? Because Gemini is about the mind. And, if you go into like, what was my first word? It's going to really show you what you as a baby were focused on. So a lot of us have our first word as mama. What was the baby focused on? Mama, right? Or food, or something that was, satisfying and feeding the spiritual energy of the baby. So look at how you used to play. These are all indications where you might need to add more of that energy into your life, or it'll give you a sense of yourself at a very young age and what was important to you at that early time. Because Mercury is saying we got to anchor in self-awareness. When you have a clear inner sense of self with the big S, so that's the soul self, you can deal with challenges, right? And if you don't have an anchored, good sense of your soul self, when challenges come, it can knock you off your balance. It can knock you off center. It could send you into the kind of that dark night of the soul. And if we look in our collective, we're kind of in a collective dark night of the soul. I mean, it's tough out there. So we really need to have ourselves grounded and anchored into a beautiful, loving, and more joyful reality, especially if we get pulled out into the collective and we start to get sad, lonely, depressed. You want to do exactly the opposite because of this unstable energy with Jupiter expanding all this kind of grief energy and anger in the collective. So especially if you're seeing, protesting and angry sentiments, don't get into the yelling matches online. Don't go to a situation and start, demanding the change. There are many ways to protest that are positive, that get them at, that are about change. And I was kind of noticing a lot of this anger and wanting things to change. And my inner sense is going, well, it's not going to change with that attitude. Not to say that there's anything wrong with being upset and angry, but real change will come from the balance of logic and wisdom, the balance of love, intuition, and logic and intelligence. They have to work together, not apart or against one another. And anger is really that kind of vibration that, if allowed to move into rage, can be blinding. But anger is good because it spurs us into action. But we don't want to have those intense, passionate feelings and not do anything. Because if we don't do anything, then it turns to rage. And if we have rage, then we have blindness. And then we're kind of in the game that separates people rather than brings us together for harmonious change built from love, grounded and anchored in a deeper sense of self. Okay, so that's what's going on with all this Aries energy and the Gemini energy. And of course, we've got a lot of stuff going on in Taurus. And I'm going to really focus more on the Taurus energy when we get to the Mercury going direct, Saturn going retrograde on Wednesday, because it involves Uranus and it involves the lunar nodes, which are in Taurus and Scorpio. But for right now, Scorpio Mercury retrograde is in a T square. See this red triangle? That's a T square. And I like to call those timeouts with Saturn, who's slowed down, right? He's not moving much because he's about to make that elliptical turn, which we call retrograde time. So with that energy, Saturn becomes the focal point. And Saturn is your inner wisdom, your inner master. And so Saturn and Mercury in this T square are asking you to focus on what you can do. Don't focus your magical mental wellness and power on what you can't do or feeling defeated. Don't belittle yourself or minimize yourself. Look to your intuition to help you solve problems, right? And this is where we can have a reading with someone. You can have an astrology reading with me. You can go see a clairvoyant. You can consult your oracle cards to utilize and tap into intuition for problem solving. You're advised to be objective and inventive. That's the Saturn energy coming in strong. Use that crown chakra to be inventive and objective. Know that one of the big things, I'm going to direct you to the blog post here. This is another image I created because I'm like, oh, I love her. She's so pretty. We want the inner rainbow to surround us. And so, so read this part of the blog post to get more detail about Mercury square Saturn. But you want to have a rainbow aura. It comes from having an inner rainbow. And the inner rainbow comes or is developed by getting to a place of that core anchored sense of soul self where many of your inner storms have cleared. And that's why I'm constantly saying be aware of where the moon is, what it's doing by sign, by phase, by chart, right? Your own chart. Because it helps you understand your inner energy, your inner emotional truth. Sometimes, if you like, wow, the moon's in this sign in this part of my chart, I'm feeling pretty good, but the collective is going crazy. Then I know it's not me. It's a collective energy. Then I can go, okay, I need to turn that off, get my own anchor of my own inner self and wisdom and intuition, then look back at that situation from a place of calm and peace. But if you feel that you are not at a anchored ground center of calm and peace, then that's where you need to go and find out what you need to do to generate an inner sense of calm, right? It's usually just kind of knowing what's going on and then making good positive choices. So part of developing your inner rainbow is knowing that a lot of your storms have already cleared. Sometimes we make a habit of having a problem. So I want you to focus on, again, what you can do. I want you to look to see, okay, what storms have cleared. You give that your focus, give that your intention, because when you do, it's going to start clearing this lightning, stormy illusion and cloud that can sit on our head, and it will get us over to the light and to the balance. Okay. The second thing you can do is begin to imbue your inner self with love and hope and charity, right? Start focusing on things that really bring you a sense of joy. That's where Mercury and this Gemini new moon come in, because they're saying, we're curious about what you're curious about. So when you watch this live, comment on what are you curious about? What's got your curiosity? What's piqued your curiosity? Like for me, I love languages. So I noticed during this Mercury retrograde, I've been not studying my language because I'm learning French, learning Welsh, and it gives me a lot of happiness to be able to understand or even speak a new language. It makes me feel very happy. So I'm like, okay, that goes in my happy column. So if I need some happiness, I go and start, playing with Duolingo, my French lessons. Okay, that's a good focus for me for the next hour, right? Or I love my tuning forks. Whoa, I haven't given myself a tune-up lately. That's what I need to do. That piques my curiosity. I want to feel the energy moving through my body. I want to feel the shifts and changes. I'm curious how the forks will react to this part of my body that maybe have some tension or have some pain or feel a little stuck. I'm curious what will happen, right? So those are just a few examples. Some of you may be curious about learning astrology. There's so many things you can do. You get books, you can attend classes. For my birthday is in June. I'm going to be putting my courses on super birthday sale. So watch for that. That would be the best time to get an astrology course if it's something you're curious about, or sound healing. Those will be on sale for my birthday later in June. Okay. So again, looking back, how have my storms cleared? So, and even sometimes, if you're visual like me, just focus on this image, this beautiful woman, and you can put yourself there. She's in the middle of a rainbow, and she's got the rainbow because her eyes are closed and she's focusing on her inner rainbow. Therefore, her outer rainbow comes to life. So it's an inside job. You got to focus on the rainbow. All right, so I'm going to end this live talking about Virgo. All right, let's go back to the chart. Here's our Gemini new moon. Mercury, the ruler, is in 26 degrees Taurus, which is in the Pleiades, right? In the Pleiades here. And it'll be going direct at 26 degrees. So Taurus is an earth element sign. And Virgo is an earth element sign. So they're in a harmonic relationship. So Mercury, even though retrograde and not in his home sign of Gemini or Virgo, is in trine to the Virgo energy. Currently, we don't have any planetary activity in Virgo, but we do have Neptune, which is opposing this kind of invisible Virgo energy. Neptune is 25 degrees Pisces. So I go to its opposite, 25 degrees Virgo, which is in trine to 26 degrees Taurus, right? So I'm like, ooh, I'm going to look in two places. I'm looking at, because the new moon is at 9 degrees Gemini, I'm going to look at 9 degrees Virgo. And because Mercury, the ruler of Gemini and Virgo, is at 26 Taurus, I'm going to look at 26 Virgo. So when I looked at those 2 degrees, I got some info that I want to give to you. All right, I need my glasses for this. All right. So the first message is from when Mercury is in that empowered state of Virgo, is that the highest intelligence is knowing the how and the why. Right? So, and how do you know the how and the why? You have to not only use your intelligence, which is a Virgo, research, analytical, critical thinking, but you also have to know that's the how do things work, right? But the why is, why do things work? That comes from more internal knowing. That's more of a Piscean part of Virgo, because remember, opposite signs are in a deep harmony. They, if you have Virgo energy, you got to bring in the Pisces because that completes it. You have a lot of Pisces energy, you got to bring in the Virgo because that completes it. So you bring in this Piscean inner soul knowing to help you build the power of the Virgo, that high intelligence of knowing the how and the why. And you're looking for this energy because you want to penetrate the mysteries of both spiritual and material worlds, right? Virgo is material world, right? It's an earth sign. It's mutable. It likes to change, like to grow things, about health and wellness. Pisces is a spiritual sign. It's a spiritual world. It's boundless. It's the infinite cosmos. It's not temporal like the earth. It's infinite and timeless. So when they come together, you get to penetrate the mysteries of the material world and the mysteries of the spiritual world. So that's what's happening when we bring Mercury over into the Virgo Pisces power. Now, Virgo is about building your skills. And so the Gemini new moon is like, well, what are you curious about? Because Virgo will help you out and create a skill set for you. This is about the craftsman, right? This is building out the skills. So if you're curious about healing, right? So you're like, wow, I'm really curious about Ayurvedic healing, right? Gemini piques your curiosity. Ooh, Ayurvedic healing. Then Virgo says, come over here and let's learn and build and become an Ayurvedic wellness practitioner, right? That's how they work together. So the Virgo vibration is empowering Mercury to help you with transcendental comprehension of anything that's going on in your life, problems, situations. It says, if you work with the Virgo Pisces energy, and of course, you can always work with the Virgo Pisces energy in your chart. What houses do those rule? For me, as a Gemini rising, the Virgo Pisces energy rules my 4th and 10th house. That's my celestial stem. That's my tree of life, right? That's on the moon axis of the 4th house and the 10th house. Where is it for you? The second thing the Virgo power with Pisces will help you is stereoscopic reasoning. I love this. So, think of a submarine and the periscope goes up and it looks around 360. That's a stereoscope, right? It's looking all around, getting a 360 view that will help you comprehend things in a transcendental, spiritual, and material way. And so if you can bring those two skills together, transcendental comprehension, the why, the spirit, the intuition, the dreamer, the soul, with stereoscopic reasoning, that's the critical thinker of the Virgo intelligence. When you put those two things together, you get what's called the birth of genius, not the birth of Venus, but the birth of genius. So look for the good that you have already. Oh, that's the second message. So the second message of the Mercury empowered by its exalted sign of Virgo, which brings in the Pisces power, is when you're developing your inner rainbow. So let me just stop the screen share. All right. So when you're developing your inner rainbow, right, that creates the outer rainbow, as you're, you're looking at, okay, what inner storms have already cleared? Let me imbue my inner self with love and hope and charity. Let me be objective and inventive. Let me focus on what I can do. Let me stop belittling myself. The last thing, or that you could add to this beautiful recipe for mental wellness and existential health, right, is to look for the good that you have inherited from your ancestors. So look at your family. It could be parents, it could be aunts and uncles, grandparents, great-grandparents. What have you inherited from them? And even if you're adopted, you inherited, because you learned from your family. You don't have to be biologically connected, but look for both. If you are adopted and you have a biological, traits, look at those too. But say like you look to an ancestor or a parent, grandparent, and they had a really good trait of ways maybe they saw the world, or the way they interacted with other people, or the way they held themselves in the world, or what they did in life, or something that they gifted you by either giving you the genetic gift of it, as well as maybe they were this way in your life and they served this type of role model for you. Look at the good that they gave you. This is something I want you to get curious about. How, look at that, decide, oh, I can, these things have come up for me. And then go, okay, I want to bring that into my inner rainbow. I want to imbue myself with that. How can I put that into my life or allow more of that to come in? So say, for example, I gave you a personal example. My great grandmother, Susie, her name was Eleanor, but I always called her Susie from kid. I think I knew her in another life, because my family was like, we don't know why she called her Susie, but we just let her do it. So she's always been Susie to me. And then she tells me, like, when I'm older, early 20s, she was like, I always loved that you call, and I never changed. Even when I was told late in life, like, her name's Eleanor, I could never call her Eleanor. Always Susie. All right. So that was just her. She just let me do it. I think but she told me later, when she was, near the end of her life, she lived to 92. She always loved that, because her little brother used to call her Susie, and he died before I was born. So I'm like, later on, of course, I'm like, is I your little brother? Who knows? You never know. But I always reminded her of her little brother that she loved, who had passed away. But anyway, as an older man, not as a young person. But anyway, so I always called my great grandma Susie, and she always had the twinkly eyes, and always had a smile on her face. So to me, when I think of Susie, I think of that smiling, twinkly eye, really nice, loving person. And so one of the stories I heard about her before I was born was, she was the type of person that, she was involved in people's lives. If you needed a job, she was out making calls and found you a job. If you needed a place to live, she was out making calls. Like, she made friends for everywhere, and connections, and she did nice things for people. So they always thought of her. And of course, if she needed a favor or had, asked something, people were like, of course I'll do that, because they were, she had such good rapport with people. So I look at that as a gift, and I go, wow, okay, how can I be more like Susie in the way of having good rapport with people, or having this super generous heart that wouldn't even think about going out of their way to do whatever it took to help that person to make their life better. That was her way. And so if I was giving her a eulogy, that's probably what I would bring up is that, wow, she just had this super generous spirit and this like joie de vivre, and she was very happy to be alive, and she loved the people, and she loved doing nice things, and she just never thought about, you know, that it took anything away from her. She was just this kind of gregarious person. She knew what it was like not to have things. So she was, it was very important to her that the people around her had what they needed, because she knew that made her life better and easier, and that made her happy. So that's something that is a good thing that you get from your inheritance. So I want to here's some examples of yours. What are the good things that you've inherited? This helps build out your inner rainbow. So that's what we're doing as we head into this new cycle. So this whole week, you're quiet, listening, getting curious. These create your intentions for this lunar cycle so that they can manifest as the moon waxes to the full moon and completes the cycle 2 weeks later. So I'm going to leave you with the last kind of bow on this new moon is the Sabian symbol for 9 degrees Gemini is an airplane going into a nosedive, falling. And we can look at that image and go, whoa, that's kind of freaky. I don't want to think about that, especially if I have a flight ticket off. I'm always like praying the whole time when I'm flying. Just makes me feel more comfortable. But the Sabian symbol is about, this is the mind in free fall, meaning a distracted mind is a mind going, taking a nosedive. But it doesn't have to crash and burn, right? It can get pulled up at the last minute, continue its flight, land safely, or do what it's supposed to be doing. So the Sabian symbol at 9 degrees is saying, okay, here is the last degree of the first decan of set of Gemini, 0 to 9 degrees. It's a completion of this potent power. Look in your life. Where does your mind take a free fall? Where does it kind of get totally out of control, where you can't, a loop, where you can't get out of a negative thought, or you can't just deal with this, or you keep hitting your head against the wall, like the same thing keeps coming up. Find one thing where you're like, yes, I got the keys from that monkey. And then start grounding it. Get curious about it. What is it? Where did it start? Who does it in my family? Or how long have I been doing this? What's my earliest memory of this behavior, right? Kind of get into it, because now you're allowing the Mercury to take over in Virgo by analyzing it and researching it. And then the Virgo reaches across the cosmos to Pisces and says, give me some transcendental, spiritual knowledge of what is this really about? Is this a past life thing? Is it a soul thing? Is it a genetic thing? Is it a learned thing? Is it a collective thing? Like, what is it? And you'll really get into this really empowered understanding that you can anchor in to this grounded sense of soul self. So that's really my guidance for the wisdom of this Gemini lunar cycle. So take this week. We're going to hit the crescent moon on Friday when Mercury goes direct, and then Saturday Saturn goes retrograde. So those are big shifts in the vibratory field. So take the next couple of days till we see each other again on Wednesday. Tune in. What are my intentions for this manifestation cycle based on this information of my nighttime astrology live? I'm going into the cosmos, into your dream land. You meet your dream teachers, and you'll wake up refreshed with that awareness. So you can put that in your intentions before you go to sleep tonight. Let me see clearly what it is I'm creating. Where's my mind taking a nosedive? How can I pull it up and get it landed safely, grounded, create that, develop and create that inner rainbow so it shines its light to everybody you meet. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back on Wednesday, 7 p.m. For another edition of Nighttime Astrology, and we'll focus on Mercury going direct, Saturn going retrograde. Until then, thanks for watching.